Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads. This is the place to come when you want to hear from experts from around the world. Our team of professionals come and share their knowledge and their expertise in a bite-sized lesson. I am so proud of our team members. Today, I am honored to be with Mariska du Preez. She is joining us from New Zealand, and she recently celebrated a birthday. Let's bring her on.
Hello.
Hello, birthday girl.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. You're looking quite radiant today, so you must have had a wonderful birthday week.
I absolutely did. I was surprised with a trip to Napier, which was really, really good. I enjoyed myself immensely, and I did miss being with you guys. But we only celebrate our birthday once a year, luckily, each and every year. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to take time for self-care, especially when it's a birthday and with someone whom you love. So we're glad that you took that time. So, Mariska, we are going to hear from you today. You are the expert in terms of leading other people. You help them through your coaching. You've got an engineering background. You're really passionate about working with people to help them go to the next level. So before you present, I just want to spotlight you. Tell us a little bit about your area of expertise and focus.
So, as Jacqueline mentioned, I am an engineer turned human behavioral expert. So I work with leaders and high achievers to help them achieve what they want within their careers and create that environment for their teams to really thrive. And I am really passionate about this work, because I do think that we all deserve great leaders. And the only way for us to have great leaders within our communities and our workplace is for all of us to be part of that and become the great leaders we are supposed to be. So, yes.
Well stated. And we will be putting up your contact information at the end of your presentation. So are you ready to go?
I am ready to go. I'm very excited.
Woo, I'm excited for you. Okay, let me put up your deck and I will go backstage. See you soon.
Okay. So today we are continuing on our journey that has started with our awesome communication. And we're looking at words today and the power of words. So what I want to start us off with is a little bit of the research that I mentioned in our presentation about 2 weeks back. And the research that I mentioned was about how words affect water. So on the slide, you will notice that there is a variety of crystallized water. So it basically looks like a snowflake. And this is just normal natural water. So it's 3 different places that they got water from, of which one of them is in New Zealand. So it's in Mount Cook at the glacier. They got some water and then they took it and froze it so it can make little crystals. and then looked at it under a microscope. And these crystals are really, really beautiful. For everybody listening, please do come and have a look at the video when you guys have a time, because it's really good to be able to see how this looks like. So after that, what they also did with their experiments is to take some distilled water and put it through its paces, so to speak. So what they found is if they played music to the water also changes the crystals that it forms. So we have two examples here. One is Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, and the other one is Swan Lake from Tchaikovsky. And just seeing how music can also change the shape of water, and it doesn't necessarily need to be music with words in it. So those sounds and vibrations also changes the shape. So before we continue with that, I want to know from you guys, how many words do you think we actually use each and every day? So there's been a few, very limited amount of studies actually done to count the amount of words we use. There has been some hypotheses about what people think the amount of words are that we use. So for our quiz today, do you think it is A, between 5,000 and 7,000 words that we use each day, or between 15,000 and 17,000 words, or do we use 20,000 to 25,000 words? Now, if you guessed that it is between 15 and 17,000, so that's B, you would be correct. They found that on average, male and female, we use round about 16,000 words each and every day. That's a lot of words. And when we think about the words that we use, a lot of these words might be similar. I mean, we do use a lot of filler words, the, ands, those type of words. And then there's also a lot of neutral type of words. So words where it's something like structure or table or screen. So they're very neutral type of words. And then, of course, we have words that has some emotional energy or a charge to them. So we have words that might be charged a little bit more with negative energies or positive energies. For instance, a word like love or collaborate would be more warm and positive type of words, whereas a word like angry and frustrated might be words that's a little bit more negative. So what I want you to do, and I know we will most probably not have a lot of time to do this today, but throughout the rest of the week, what I would like you to do is to do a little bit of an audit on the words that you use. So you can either do this by just imagining, bringing into your mind's eye the words that you think it is that you're using, or if you are a little bit more structured, you can draw up a wee little diagram like the one that I did. So on my wee little diagram, I put in the source, so where it is that I'm using my words, whether it be email, maybe it might be social conversations, work conversations, or specific people that I am communicating with. And then whether the words that I'm using is positively charged in their energy, emotionally negative, or just a neutral word. And then also a spot to make some notes. So I know what I want to do with the information, because it's wonderful having the information, but I'm not going to do anything with it. That's sort of pointless. So areas that we can think of doing this audit might be in our written words. So it might be text messages, it might be our social interactions on our social media platforms, or our emails. So we can look at all of these different areas, and what's really helpful and handy in those areas is that you have a record of it. So you have your email and your inbox, and you can go and have a look at all your sent emails and the replies that you normally send. And you can have a bit of a look at what emotionally positive, negative, or neutral words am I using in these certain circumstances. And then get an average for those and pop them in the different columns. Then once you have that, you have a very clear view of what it is that you are actually sending out into the world. And you can decide what you want to do with this information. We can also, so I did mention social conversations or work conversations. So in certain circumstances, it does happen that we use specific words or more emotionally uncharged or charged words in specific conversations. So having a family gathering, the conversation we will have will be quite different to when we're speaking to a colleague or our boss. So thinking about these conversations, looking at the type of words that we're using within these conversations. And this might also vary from person to person. So when I am speaking, for instance, to my mom, the conversation, because of our relationship and her personality, would be quite different to when I am speaking, for instance, to a work colleague. So taking those things into consideration, as well as the person that I'm actually communicating with and what words I'm using with this person. Now, once you did your little audit, it's really helpful to go and have a look at patterns. So I'm a big fan of experimenting and patterns, because when we see patterns, it's easy for us to see, oh, okay, so this is something that I do a lot, or this is something that I don't do that much. And I actually need to increase or decrease, depending on what it is that I want to be doing, this specific thing. So looking at those different patterns within our communication and in our word use will show us whether we have a tendency to have a lot of emotional positive words in our daily use, or a lot of emotional negative words in our daily use, or just neutral words. Now, when we think about this, just the neutral words, they're not bad or good because they're neutral, right? In saying that, they also don't necessarily take us anywhere specific. So this is where the intentionality comes in, and really understanding what our intention is about the communication that we put out. So whether it's an email or whether it is just a social communication with friends and the person that we're communicating with. So diving a little bit deeper then again into our research, what they also did is they took some water to see what the effect of different energy levels and words would be on the water specific. So there's two experiments that really stood out to me. The one is they took tap water from Tokyo. So on the slide, you will see it looks a little bit yucky, really. And then they also took water from a lake in Brazil. So also the structure, it's not a beautiful structure, right? It looks a little bit disarrayed. So this is how the water looked like before they did anything. And then they went and they did the experiment. So in Tokyo, what they did is they asked people outside of the city to send the energy of love to Tokyo and to their water system. And it became this beautiful crystal that you can see. It sort of has this geometric shape in the middle, and then it almost looks like little trees towards the ends of this shape. And then on the lake, what they did with the lake water is they got somebody to come and pray over the lake, right? So when you think about it, it is words that was spoken with intention of the prayer. And it turned this water into a little forest crystal. It really, to me, looks like little trees when it snowed. And it's a really beautiful crystal that formed from it. So this is what happens with the words that we speak, just in water. Now, as human beings, we are about 70% liquid, right? So if normal water that does not technically live, because it can't breathe, it can't do all of those type of things, it changes it that much. Just imagine the amount that it can change in us. And the thing is, we don't only speak our words out, we also speak our words in our heads to ourselves each and every day. So our own self-talk also makes a huge difference in how we will actually experience the world. And this is where they did another experiment, which I found really fascinating. So they took the words I can't and the words I can do it. And they put the words on the container where the water was contained in, and they left them. And you will notice on the slide that I can't do it started forming a really beautiful structure, but it never completed. It looks like it sort of broke off halfway through the construction of this crystal. Whereas where the words I can do it actually formed a full, beautiful, really beautiful structure for the crystal. And this is the difference in just using the word can versus can't. So we just changed that one word. We have such a big impact on what happens. So when you are doing your audit, I want you to really become aware. So we're going to do two things basically in our audit. First, it's creating awareness, right? We want to see what is it that we're actually doing at the moment without changing anything. What is it that I'm doing every day in my communication, in the words that I'm using? So I can create awareness around what is happening in my communication. So when we think about awareness, there's a couple of questions that I put up. So one of the questions we can ask is, what words am I not aware of that I might be using right now? So it might be that we go through our emails and we sort of see words in there that we go, oh, I didn't realize that I was actually talking that way or communicating that way. It's also always helpful to ask friends, families, and colleagues, hey, I'm doing a bit of a survey just to see what's going on in my communication. I would love to get your input and your help with this for those areas that I might not be aware of. So would you, in the next couple of days, just have a listen to these criteria of words and then hear from them what specifically it is that they come back with. And be very specific with your instructions to them as to what it is you want them to come back to you with. So that's the one. Then the next question is, what positive energy words am I using? Right? Identifying those words that has positive energy to them, and how many times do I see that I'm using them? And how can I bring more positive energy words into my communication? So now that I'm starting to notice them, maybe how can I do this more? Then intentionality, this is the, well, I'm doing my survey, wonderful, I have all this data, but now what? Right? It doesn't help. I learn something, why I get to know something and I don't do anything with it. So that's where the intentionality comes in. What's my intention in this interaction? Now that I know the impact that my words has on every single conversation that I have, what do I want to bring to that conversation? What is my intention with my email or my social media feed or my correspondence via social media, whatever the case might be? What would be the words that would serve us best? So when we're in a conversation with somebody, what words can I use to serve the both of us in this conversation to get what it is that we want to actually achieve? And then how can I use my words to create more good vibes around me? Because our words also create the energy that we have around us, as we saw with the water, right? We want to have all those beautiful crystals in our life and create more of that. So being very intentional with the words we use, as well as in what surroundings we use them and with the different people that we use them with. And then just a last little ask yourself before we end. I want you to think about, what is my intention? When we're communicating, what's your intention? And then, what words am I using in order for me to actually work towards what I intend to create? And then, what impact is this making? Not only for me, but also for the other person that we will be communicating with. So taking those elements into consideration. And then, last but not least, if there is any questions that you have, I would love to hear from you. You can get hold of me via my email, which is mariska@journeytodiscover.com. Or you can visit my website, journeytodiscover.com, or please connect with us on LinkedIn. And that for today is the end of my lesson.
Well done. Well done. Thank you so much, Mariska. I love the use of your slides and the yellow and the turquoise and the incorporating of the questions. It's really thought-provoking.
Thank you. I hope that even though we have such a short time to actually get information, I want to be able to leave our learners with a little bit more that can help them to think through how they're communicating and how they were using their words.
And I think you bring up a really good point. I think when emotions come into play, many times we forget the power of
Mhm.
words and we let the emotion overtake us. But when we have time to consider and think about it, then we can actually pick our words.
Yes, that is very, very true. And if we know we're going into a conversation that might be difficult, so we might go into a negotiation or a presentation that makes us a little bit jittery, being intentional with what it is that we want the outcome to be just makes it so much easier for us to actually show up the way we want to show up within that space, instead of leaving it to chance and then we just fall back into, well, most probably behaviors that we don't want other people to uh, see every day.
Absolutely. And sometimes at least I've experienced this in my life, when there's an absence of words, when people stop communicating and they put up a wall of silence, there's a lot to be said about that as well. I had that in one of my personal relationships, and the other person just wouldn't talk. You could go in front of them, and go, oh, nothing. They wouldn't blink. And that was their way of sort of the lack of words was really a communication method as well.
Yeah, and that makes it really tricky. I mean, we communicate in so many different ways, and for us, speaking is one of the ways to clarify what it is that we are busy thinking or experiencing. And if another person is not speaking what they are experiencing, the only thing we really have to go by is their body language and facial expressions and the way that they behave. And, well, it might be fairly accurate, but it might be also misinterpreted. So
It's very
it's good to
true.
use the words.
And Mariska, what are your thoughts and your experience? We are really such a small world now, and the fact that this energy and these platforms enable us to communicate from all over the world, but we don't necessarily always understand the meaning behind someone's words when they come from a different culture.
Yes, that is something that we need to be mindful of. That works a lot into our biases and our own perceptions of things. So I had a conversation with somebody actually yesterday, and I was talking about filling out a form, and I mentioned that you need to put in your name and then your surname. And they looked at me a little bit funny, and they said, surname? And I said, yes, otherwise also known as your last name. And they were like, oh, is that what it was? So even simple things like that, right? Because it might be a word that you're so used to using, but the other person in their environment don't use it. So taking those, it seems silly and small, but we can so easily miscommunicate because of those elements. So always just keeping it in the back of your head that, well, who am I talking to? And am I versed in their surroundings, their culture, their upbringing, in order for me to communicate in an effective manner?
Well said. And something else I just want to point out, one of our team members here at USA Global TV, Hyatt Ives, he's always very astute when it comes to grammar and the English language and how some words have more than one meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be careful about that as well, because that can be powerful if you mean it a word one way and someone else takes it another way.
Yes. Yes. That becomes really tricky. Plus, then you also have the added layer on top of that, that everybody is not necessarily brought up in an English speaking household, so they might be bilingual or even have more than one language that they're versed in. And that also influences the way that we use our words and the way that we would express ourselves. So it's always very, very interesting for me to listen to people and hear how they tell stories and how they actually communicate, because you can glean a lot from what it is in just how they're saying things. So I find it fascinating.
I do too. And I wonder if you can share with our audience, in your role as a transformation and leadership coach, how important is it for you to select your words?
Very. Extremely, I would say. So because words and the use of words is a very personal thing. So each of us do it a little bit different. Our background would have an influence on it. Our culture has an influence on it. Our personality has an influence on it. And the meaning of words also has a bit of a difference from person to person, even when it's the exact same word. So drive might mean one thing to one person, quite a different thing to another person. And drive, also one of those words that has more than one meaning. As in, you can drive your car, or you can drive on the golf range, or you can drive cattle along. So a variety of different meanings for the same word. So in my occupation, what I have found is never assume I know what the other person means. Always ask. I might think I know what they mean. And just to ask, hey, can you clarify that for me? Helps me to make sure that I actually do understand what they mean. Because I might have been correct, in which case the question didn't hurt. And I might have been way off, in which case the question actually helped me a lot. So it's always, always helpful for me, I have found, to make sure that I understand what meaning the other person has attached to the words that they're using. And that also helps both of us to clarify the communication in that space.
Good point. I've always felt when someone asks, I want to make sure I understand what you just said. What I heard is XYZ. The person is genuinely interested in what it is that I'm sharing. And it's also a great way, it's sort of a sales tool that it gives you some extra time. This is not about authentic listening. That's another show. It gives you some extra time to come up with your response.
Yes, yes. And I think something that I found we don't always do enough is think. We are so fast to respond. Instead of just taking a little bit of time and actually think about what is it exactly that was asked? Or what is it that I want to respond with in order for us to have the interaction that I intend us to have? So that's also something to take into consideration. I don't know, what have you found, Dr. Jacqueline?
From my past career when I was in corporate America, I was actually trained to ask that question if I needed some extra time to think about the answer, which is why I said that. But as a coach, I want to make sure that the client and I are on the same page, because many times, especially in a coaching session, and you know this yourself, and having been coached by you for years now, you can, as a client, you can get very emotionally engaged and wrapped up, and the coach has to sort of cut through all of that to get to where is that epiphany, or where is that aha moment that from there we can actually start to make progress? Because we have so much emotion inside of us, and especially if you've been through a trauma and you stuff all that emotion inside. So I have found, as a coach and also when I was a salesperson, it is really good to clarify and make sure that you are understanding what the other person is sharing, and also what the intent and the meaning is.
Yes. Yeah, that is absolutely spot on.
And I think sometimes also after you do that clarification, you might find out that what they were explaining and what you heard were not the same thing. And then you have to get on the same page.
Exactly. It helps us to communicate better. And that's the whole intention, because if we are more clear in how we communicate and listening to the other person, it makes life so much easier. You can just do it once instead of trying to do something over and over and over again to get it right.
Exactly. Then you realize that's insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So,
Exactly.
well, this is another great lesson. Can you let our audience know what to expect for the next lesson?
So, for the next lesson, we are going to continue on our communication journey, and we are going to look at the influence pictures has on our communication. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys. And there's also a tad bit of research that happened in that space, but I'm not going to give away too much. And yeah, you will have to tune in next week to find out more.
Thank you so much. And Mariska, while I have you on Spotlight, what is the best way for people to reach you, and who would you like to reach out?
So best way for people to reach me is on my email. So my email is mariska@journeytodiscover.com. I can spell that for you guys. MARISKA at journey, which I hope you know how to spell, with a 2 for the 2-bit, discover.com. Alternatively, I am always open to connect on LinkedIn. So that is the platform that I am most on these days. And you can find me Mariska D, just a D, Preez. And I am on LinkedIn. So please connect with me that way too. And people that can reach out is leaders that want to up their game, as well as high achievers, and people going through transitions. So if you're in a specialized position and you're moving into leadership, that can be quite tricky sometimes, especially finding your feet and making sure that you hit the ball out of the park in your new leadership position without alienating the team. So if that's you, get in contact.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Mariska. It's a pleasure seeing you again. And I look forward to seeing you backstage after the show.
Me too.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for watching, whether you're watching on the live or you're watching on the replay. I wanted to just let you know that you can now watch our shows on our website, USA Global TV, and you can also watch all the Talking Head shows there as well. So just go to usaglobaltv.com. Also, we do stream, whether it's live or as a podcast after the fact, on 17 platforms, and we're really going to be narrowing that down. So we're asking everyone to go over to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV, of course. And we're just starting to build our following there. So we'd love to have you if you watch us on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Twitch, or you listen on Business Talk Radio. Go over to the YouTube channel. We're going to be taking down some of these other channels and directing everybody again to YouTube, USA Global TV. Thank you so much. That wraps up our broadcasting